Please rise for this drill. Thank you. Please be seated. State call your witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Eli Johnson to stand.
Jensen, we're going to get Mr. West or Mr. Marshall, level 2.
No, Your Honor.
So would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony about this court this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth?
I do.
You have a seat. Scoot yourself up to the microphone if you would. State your full name for the record. Spell both your first and last.
My name is Eli Johnson.
Sorry.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
First name E-L-I, last name J-O-H-N-S-O-N.
Mr. Marshall.
Good afternoon, sir. And how are you employed?
I'm a paramedic with Albuquerque Ambulance.
And how long have you been, have you worked for Albuquerque Ambulance?
4 years.
Have you been a paramedic that whole time?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a prior EMS or EMT training before?
Nothing previous.
Okay. And so just, again, what are the different kinds of things that a paramedic can do, like as part of being an emergency medical responder?
Well, the first thing we do is we perform a patient assessment. So we get a differential diagnosis, a working diagnosis, for any kind of patient condition. So we would be able to treat underneath Bernalillo County protocols, conditions on our working diagnosis, and transport to the hospital.
And do you work with a partner? Generally?
Yes, every day it's a partner. I have a partner.
Are they always a paramedic? Are they sometimes an EMT? How does that work?
It varies, just kind of luck of the draw every day. It can be a paramedic from basic, intermediate, or paramedic.
And what kind of calls do you respond to as part of your work with Albuquerque Ambulance?
Anything worth calling 911 within the Bernalillo County area, we can go on any of it. Trauma, stroke, heart attack, anything.
And on December 27th, 2013, were you working that day?
Yes.
Did you respond to a call involving Omaree Varela?
I did.
And do you recall where you were when the call came in?
I do not. I know we were en route to a post. I do not know where I was located.
Okay. And what does that mean? Does that mean you were driving?
Yeah, we were driving to a certain area in town where we wait for a call to come out.
And while you were driving, you received this call?
Yes, sir.
And how did the call come in?
Came in as according to the chart, came in as a 32 Delta, which is an unconscious, unresponsive.
All right. And for the moment, if you could set your chart to the side, we're going to try to go off your memory, and if we need to, we can potentially use your chart to refresh. And you said it was a 32 Delta. What does that mean?
Unconscious, unresponsive.
At that time, do you know if it's an adult or?
The call came out as a pediatric.
And where was the call to?
To a residence.
Do you recall which the residence?
Do not recall the address.
With looking at your chart, would that help refresh your memory? Any objection? Is it already? Do you want me to approach with a different one, or is it already?
I don't know, have you seen this one?
No, you're not. I'll use mine. That's fine. That way I know.
Thank you. So the address is 4909 Comanche Road.
And do you remember the time that the call came in?
Not without the chart.
Any yeah, go ahead and refresh your memory. If that's
Looks like around 4:30 in the afternoon.
all right. And do you recall how long it took you to get to the scene?
Not without looking at the chart. About 3 minutes.
And as a paramedic, typically, what is your role at the scene?
Depends on if I'm the first paramedic on scene, we direct patient care. It's whoever's first on directs patient care, first paramedic on scene.
And who was the first paramedic on scene?
Rachel would have been the first paramedic on scene. We were both paramedics, but she was the one running that call.
Okay. And were you two riding together or partners?
We were for that day, yes.
Okay. And so what happened when you pulled up? What did you do when you first arrived at the 4909 Comanche?
First we got our equipment ready, and then we entered the home, went to the back room where we saw an officer at the bedside with Omaree on the bed, laying on his back on the edge of the bed. And the officer informed us that he could not feel a pulse. So we went over there, confirmed, me and Rachel confirmed that there was no pulse. So we picked up the patient, put him on the ground so we could continue resuscitative efforts.
And when you say resuscitative efforts, what efforts were you utilizing, or what did you start with?
Well, I started with CPR. I initiated CPR.
And what is CPR?
Cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
So what do you? What's the purpose? What are you doing? And why
we're trying to keep blood circulating as best as we can for the brain, lungs, heart, just to try to keep oxygen to those organs to try to keep them alive.
And maybe I need to back up just a little bit. What was Omaree's condition when you arrived?
When we first got there, he was in cardiac arrest. His heart was not beating.
And was he breathing at the time?
No, he was not.
Did you expect that based on the initial call?
No.
And why is that?
Because the call came out that he was unconscious, and so we assumed that they're unconscious, but they still have a heart rate and they're still breathing. So it was a surprise to us when we got on scene and there was no breathing or pulse.
And when you received it, though, would that have changed the way you drove there? Did you go lights and sirens?
We went lights and sirens, and even if it was a cardiac arrest, we would have responded the same way.
Okay. Did you touch Omaree's skin?
I did for CPR.
And do you remember how it felt?
I do not.
Okay. And when you start CPR, what are you doing?
I'm pushing on the chest to contract the heart so we can keep blood flow circulating.
Are you also, and about how many compressions are you doing a minute?
We want to try to get as close to 100 compressions per minute as we can.
And do you use any other devices in conjunction with CPR? Like, is the patient breathing, or are you doing something to help the patient breathe?
We will breathe for the patient with a BVM and a mask. BVM is a bag valve mask. It's a device that helps us give artificial ventilation with oxygen.
And were you utilizing that here with Omaree?
Yes, we were.
And approximately how many breaths are you giving a minute as well?
Should be 30 compressions to 2 at that time. So it would have been 16 breaths a minute around. I'm not sure exactly what the chart says. I'm not sure.
All right. But you were following the chart.
Yeah, I was following the chart.
And do you take turns administering CPR?
Yes,
And who else was helping to administer CPR then?
AFD,
And
Albuquerque Fire Department.
all right, thank you. And what was your partner doing? What was Rachel doing while this was going on?
I do not recall.
All right. And what is capnography?
Capnography is a device that reads what is blowing off the exhalation from our ventilations. It's reading carbon dioxide, CO2, and it's a byproduct of cellular respiration. It's showing how well the body's metabolism is working, and it gives us a value within there.
Did you use utilize anything to check Omaree's capnography?
Yes, we did. I placed the capnography.
And what did you use?
We used a device that just goes on the end of the LMA that we used. So prior to this, I placed a laryngeal mask airway, which is a small mask that goes into the esophagus on top of the trachea to give us a better seal for better ventilations. And on the outside of that, it's a device that we put just so the air passes through it, and it will read the value of the CO2 coming off.
And so you're using then, correct me if I'm wrong, you're using two different devices to assist with the breathing, is that right?
Yes.
The LMA, and what was that stand for again?
Laryngeal mask airway.
And then the BVM?
Yes.
And what does that stand for?
Bag valve mask.
And so what is the bag valve mask doing compared to the laryngeal?
So the laryngeal mask airway is sitting in the esophagus on top of the trachea, so it's creating a seal around the trachea so we can get better ventilation. The bag valve mask is actually what's giving us the air, so we squeeze it and it actually gives the ventilation. And we attach the bag valve mask to the laryngeal mask airway to give the ventilation.
All right. And what kind of readings were you getting for Omaree that day as a result of the capnography?
I don't recall.
Was there a change at some point?
I do believe there was a change.
And do you have another term sometimes you use for a change?
We call it a spike in capnography, or an elevated capnography reading, or CO2 reading.
And did that happen here with Omaree?
Yes, it did.
And what does that mean to you when that happens?
So if we're having a metabolic rate at, say, an interval of 20, and then we get up to 40, then that shows a change where the body's metabolism is functioning better. And so it gives us reason that either there's something else going on that is causing the body to work better, or the cellular respiration to work better.
And what does that mean? What does it mean that if you see that kind of a change?
It's possible that the patient has a heart rate that we cannot feel or palpate or auscultate. It's possible that the body is functioning again, just at a level that we can't see, but the body is giving off respiration that they are.
And so, based on that's when you have those spikes, what do you do in response to that?
Well, in certain different situations, we'll call a doctor and we'll talk to them and give them what we see and go from there.
And what did you do in this case with Omaree?
Rachel called the doctor.
All right. And what did that change your course of treatment?
We were instructed by the doctor to transport to the hospital.
Were there any other medications you were providing during the CPR?
I did not.
Okay. Did someone part of the collective effort?
They, as far as without looking at the chart, I know we administered epinephrine.
All right. And what is epinephrine?
Epinephrine is adrenaline. It's a medication to stimulate the heart.
And how often are you able to give it?
Every 3 to 5 minutes.
Do you recall how many rounds you gave?
I do not.
Do you recall if the epinephrine was given at the house?
Yes, I know we gave some.
Was it also given during transport?
I do not know.
All right. Would looking at the chart help?
Yes.
May I put you?
Thank you. Epinephrine was given en route.
I'm sorry. Oh,
It looks like epinephrine was given en route.
And again, if you could refresh your memory, approximately how, or if you could determine how many rounds of epinephrine were given.
Six rounds of epinephrine. There were 6 rounds of epinephrine given.
En route or at?
2 rounds en route to the hospital.
And is that, so?
Yeah.
And then 4 at the home, is that what that means?
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Okay. And would looking at the chart, would it help refresh your memory about the capnography results as well?
Yes.
Any objection? What were the, or if you could look and, I'll have a question.
Our initial capnography reading was 23 millimeters of mercury.
And what was the spike?
The spike was from 23 to 44.
All right. And I think you mentioned before that that kind of a change from the 20s to the 40s is indicative of something to you.
It's possible that there is a higher metabolic rate.
Okay. Now, you say that there was a decision made to transport. What is factored into that decision? You said part of it was the capnography. What else goes into your decision-making process?
Everything we've done. So we want to make sure we have an advanced airway, which with an LMA counts as an advanced airway. We do give advanced cardiac life support drugs. Epinephrine are those drugs. And then we also talk with the doctor about how long we've been performing CPR. And with all of those things in conjunction, we'll talk to the doctor.
And what vehicle did you transport Omaree in?
In an ambulance.
Was it the ambulance you arrived in?
Yes, sir.
And while you were en route, what was your role?
I was driving.
Okay. How long had you been working with Omaree before you decided to transport?
I'll have to look at the chart. Just about 20 minutes.
And do you recall how long it took you to get from Comanche to the hospital?
Not without looking at the chart.
Any objection?
Looks like 9 minutes.
All right. And I referred to a hospital. Which hospital was that?
University of New Mexico.
And what did you do when you got there?
I assisted in pulling the patient out of the ambulance, taking him to the physicians that were waiting, and transferring the patient onto the ER bed.
And at that point, what happens?
At that point, I take the bed out, and that's it. I have no further patient contact.
While you were interacting with Omaree, though, did you see any signs of trauma?
I did not. Actually, excuse me. I do remember an abrasion or something above the eyebrow. That's all I can remember.
Okay. You have a moment, Charter?
Yes.
Pass the witness, Charter.
Cross-examination.
Afternoon.
Move the microphone around to you.
Oh, sure, Judge. Thank you. So, Mr. Johnson, you stated that when the call came in, it came in as unresponsive,
Unconscious, unresponsive. Yes.
Unconscious, unresponsive. Now, to someone who's trained, like an EMT or someone who works for the fire department, a nurse, a doctor, that means basically laying down on the ground and not reacting when you call them, correct?
Yes.
Now, unresponsive may mean something different to the average person who doesn't do this sort of work. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're specifically trained to treat someone who's unresponsive and unconscious differently than someone who's not breathing and has no pulse, right?
Well, that depends.
Okay. But if someone's not breathing and has no pulse, it's a little more critical.
Well, a person that is not breathing and doesn't have a pulse is also unconscious and unresponsive.
Right. So that's an additional thing to be concerned about if they don't have a pulse and they're
Yes.
not breathing, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And would you call someone who's unconscious, that's someone who'd be down? Unresponsive, unconscious is someone who's down. Unresponsive, unconscious, not breathing, no pulse would be down and out. Would you agree with that?
No. I
Okay.
think that unconscious and unresponsive is somebody that's not responding like you said, and then unresponsive is somebody that does not respond to any stimulus.
Okay, so you shake them, you say, hello, can you hear me? You call their name, they don't respond.
Yes, that's
Okay.
unresponsive.
And that would be a difference in the way you render your care based on whether they respond to you or not, right?
Yes.
Whether they have a heart rate or not,
Yes.
whether they're breathing or not.
Yes.
Okay. And you don't know here how long this child was unresponsive, unconscious, not breathing, and without a pulse.
I do not.
Okay. We have a moment, Your Honor? Nothing further, thank you.
Can you redirect?
No, you're not.
That's good, step down. Can we release Ms. Vina?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Thank you. Come get you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, please call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we approach real quick? Call your next witness. You're on the seatbelt, Andrew Cook.
Cook, would you raise your right hand for me, sir? You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give to this court here this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and a penalty of perjury?
Yes, sir.
Just have a seat, Mr. Cook. State your full name for the record, spelling both the first and last name.
Andrew Cook, ANDREWCOOK.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And how are you employed?
With Albuquerque Police Department,
And how long have you been employed there?
15 years.
And as part of your employment, what positions have you held?
I've been in field services the whole time.
And do you have any special trainings or certifications being part of the Field Services Bureau?
No.
As part of your work as a police officer, were you working on December 27th, 2013?
Yes.
And what area of command were you working?
Northeast Area Command?
And that day, did you respond to a call involving Omaree Varela?
I did.
And did you recall when you responded?
I think it was just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon is when I got dispatched to it.
Would looking at your report, would that help?
It would.
Refresh your memory?
Yeah. And actually, I don't know if my report, I think it was just a supplemental. I don't know if it'll have the time that I was dispatched. I'd have to look at the CADs to find out exactly when I got dispatched to it.
All right, let me.
$16:39, so 4:39 is when I was dispatched to it.
Okay. Were you the initial officer on the scene?
No.
So what did you do when you arrived?
I was directed to stay in the den with Miss Varela.
And so how long were you in contact with her?
Several hours. I was there, for, I think, until close to 10 o'clock at night.
And during that time, did you have a chance to observe her demeanor?
Yes.
And what was her demeanor like?
She was very calm.
Um,
Kind of sleepy, like we call it in the field. We call it on the nod. It seems like they're kind of just dozing off all the time.
Did she exhibit concern for Omaree?
Didn't appear to.
Did she appear crying or upset over Omaree having to leave with an ambulance?
Not that I remember.
During that time, did you have a chance to come into contact with Stephen Casaus?
I did.
What kind of contact did you have with him?
Very limited. He was in the bedroom with the two kids, and I was in the den with her. So I stayed in the den, and they would come out on occasion getting something for the children, drinks or like that. But for the most part, he stayed in the bedroom, I stayed in the den. So I didn't have any interaction with him for the most part.
And understanding that your contact with him was brief, but did he exhibit signs of concern for Omaree?
He didn't appear to either.
Did he appear upset or crying?
No, sir.
We have a moment, John.
Yes.
That's good, John.
Cross-examination.
Afternoon, officer.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
So when you spent that time with Ms. Varela, you had to obtain her blood sugar meter, right?
That's correct.
Because she's a diabetic.
That's what she told me, yes.
And Steve, Mr. Casaus, was in the bedroom with the two little kids, right?
That's correct.
And they were little kids, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Stevie, the littlest one, sort of running around and carrying on,
Yes, ma'am, he was.
and sort of required Mr. Casaus to be focused on that little guy.
Yes, ma'am, I would say that's true.
And then Nevi, the little girl, she was in their room too.
Yes, ma'am.
And he was taking care of her as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And he was trying to be calm for the children, correct?
Objection calls for speculation, Your Honor.
He can answer the question if he knows. Your Honor.
Ask a different, sustain.
And did it appear that Mr. Casaus was trying to care for his children, those two little children in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who else was in the room with those two little children and Mr. Casaus?
There was another officer in there.
Okay. And there were no concerns raised to you or anybody else about what Mr. Casaus was doing with those two children?
Not that I was told.
That they were afraid of him?
Not that I was told.
No. None of that got brought to your attention, that they seemed to be concerned about how Mr. Casaus was caring for those two children, correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't witness anything like that yourself, right?
I don't understand the question.
I'll repeat it. You did not witness any concerns about how Mr. Casaus was caring for those two little children?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Now, after you had additional involvement with Ms. Varela, correct?
The next day, yes, ma'am.
And that was when she was being booked in, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And booked in basically, well, let me back up a little bit. You were escorting her to what's called the PTC, right?
The Prisoner Transport Center, yes, ma'am.
And that's where people are brought before they're taken to MDC
That's correct.
to be incarcerated.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you, along with at least one other officer, were responsible for taking Ms. Varela to the Prisoner Transport Center, right?
That's correct.
And you did not escort Mr. Casaus to the PTC?
I did not.
Okay. And when you were doing this, when you were taking Ms. Varela to the PTC, there was some news cameras there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And those news cameras, along with the news cameras, were a couple of reporters, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were present when one of the reporters asked Ms. Varela what happened.
I was.
Okay. And Ms. Varela stated, basically, she was disciplining him, right?
That's correct.
And she kicked him too hard.
I believe she said I kicked him the wrong way.
Kicked him the wrong way. Your Honor, at this time I would move to admit what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit A. Sounds like the parties have stipulated to this. And then I'd like to publish it to the jury.
No objections, but we're not withdrawing any of our arguments at the bench regarding the statement.
It'll be admitted. Sorry, is it a DVD or CD? What is it?
It is a DVD, Your Honor.
You're asking to publish?
Yes, Your Honor.
Before you start.
May I? Thank you.
was an accident. I was disciplining him. I kicked him the wrong way. It was an accident.
Does that look familiar, officer?
Yes, ma'am.
And so Ms. Varela stated she kicked him the wrong way and it was an accident, correct?
That's what she said.
And at no point does she say Mr. Casaus had anything to do with it, did she?
Not that I heard.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Can you redirect on that?
No, Your Honor, but I have, may we approach?
Any questions, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down, Mr. Thank you. Any need for Mr. Cook to remain on the subpoena, Mr. Marshall?
Not for this issue.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Call your next witness.
State calls Chad Stewart. Yep, approach, Your Honor. The court order.
Yeah. But you'll be using the elbow, Mr. Marshall.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Stewart, would you raise your right hand for me, please?
Yes, sir.
You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give this court here this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the penalty of perjury.
I do.
Please have a seat.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Can you state your full name for the record, if you would, Mr. Stewart, spelling both your first and last name?
Yes, sir. It's Chad, C-H-A-D, Stewart, S-T-U-A-R-T.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall.
And how are you employed, sir?
I work for Albuquerque Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Albuquerque Police Department?
About 7.5 years.
And what is your rank?
Detective.
And what do you have to do to become a detective?
Typically you have to take a test. If it's a position that multiple people apply for, you all test, which consists of a written, oral interviews, that kind of thing.
And in which department are you a detective?
APD, Albuquerque.
Is there like a subsection or group that you work with?
Yes, or the criminalistics or the major crime scene team.
And what does the criminalistics or the major crime scene team do?
We respond to large, high-profile crime scenes like homicides, officer-involved shootings, things of that nature.
And what is criminalistics?
Criminalistics is like the branch of law enforcement that deals with the forensic science, like physical evidence side of things, or
And what do you mean by physical evidence? Is it like what kinds of things do you do when you're at a scene?
lots of photographs. Could be anything from latent fingerprints, DNA swabs, blood stain, pattern analysis, anything on that type of area.
And how long have you been part of as a detective in criminalistics?
It's been about 2.5 years.
And were you working on December 27th, 2013?
Yes,
And were you working as a detective in criminalistics?
correct.
And did you respond to a call involving Omaree Varela?
Yes.
So what happens? What do you have to do to get for the major crime scene group to be notified? Are you guys the first on scene?
No. Typically the call comes into dispatch, the field units go out there, and they determine if a field investigator needs to be called, and then if there's a death, the field investigator will get a hold of the field investigator supervisor, and they'll determine if it's going to be a call out, and if it is, They call out violent crimes, the DA, criminalistics.
All right. And so, did they determine that the case involving Omaree Varela, was that determined to be a call-out?
Correct, yes, sir.
And you were called out?
Yes.
Do you recall what time criminalistics was called?
I got the call about 1800, about 6 o'clock in the evening.
All right. And do you recall kind of the scene generally as you arrived?
Yes.
And how was it? What did it look like?
It was a single-family residence on Comanche.
And what do you do when you arrive on the scene?
Okay, I get the call, and I was primary at this time, so I stopped by the crime lab and picked up the mobile crime van, and then from there I take it out to the scene. And I'm sorry, what did you ask about?
And what do you do when you get there? What did you do in this case when you arrived on the scene?
Okay, we get there, and once everybody arrives, we have a briefing where the field officers, the initial first responders come in and kind of give everybody a breakdown of what they did and then we kind of formulate a plan what we're going to do with homicide, or in this case it was CACU, the Crimes Against Children Unit.
And so you formulate your plan, and then based on that, what do you do after that?
We process the scene for physical evidence, take a lot of pictures, and then we have to wait for a warrant to go in the house. We'll take pictures of outside of the house, from the perimeter of the crime scene where the tape has gone up, and then once the warrant comes, we'll go in the house and take overall photos of the house as we find it, and then start processing it for any evidence that we might be looking for.
And you did receive a warrant in this case before you went in?
Right.
So what do you see when you first walk in the home?
There's a living room. There's several different TVs in the living room. That's the first. Coming in the front door, that's the first room you walk into.
And I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 10 and, sorry, they're out of order, it's States Exhibit 23.
Okay.
10 and 23.
Yes, Your Honor. Sorry, they are out of order. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes.
How do you recognize those photos?
Looks like a picture of the living area of the 4909 Comanche home.
And is that in the same or substantially same condition as it was when you went to the home that day?
Yes.
And Your Honor, at this point, I would move to publish the photos as States Exhibits 10 and 23.
You've seen it throughout council today. I'll talk to you, but you have it now?
Sorry, the state, I think, moved to admit those.
Yeah.
Are they
I
admitted?
didn't hear any objections.
No objection, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody done?
May I publish on it?
Yes.
And I'm showing you what's been marked and admitted as States Exhibit 10. If you could kind of just describe, what are we seeing in this photo, and if you could orient us a little bit. Can you see it on your screen as well, sir?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
it's
good.
right here, yeah. So that's just inside the front door of the home. I believe that'd be looking west. There's a couch on the bottom left corner, coffee table just in front of that. Looks like a small Christmas tree and then a TV up against the window.
And which one is this? Is it 10 or 20?
That was 10 year. And can you describe what's on that coffee table?
So a cup and a bamboo plant, a couple giraffe statues. Yeah.
Is there a telephone on the coffee table?
I don't know, it looks kind of blurry from my little thing. If I could look at the picture again, I might be able to tell you, but.
Any objection to showing the actual photo?
Yeah, it looks like there's a cordless landline phone kind of in this proximate center of the table.
All right. I'm going to show you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 23.
Okay,
Similar, it's a similar photo in many ways, but it's got a slightly different aspect. Is that correct?
right.
What do you see that's a little bit different from this photo from the last photo?
It's just oriented a little bit to the side. You don't see the couch, but you can still see the phone and other items that were on the table.
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 11, 12, 13, and 14. But before I do that, I actually have a couple of other questions. You said you walk into the room, and the first is a living room. Is there a room that was kind of where a lot of things were supposed to have happened according to your briefing? Do you know where the Omaree was found by the initial officers?
Right, like kind of in the back, like master bedroom.
All right. And I'm going to show you these. It's, like I said, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes.
How do you recognize those photos?
Those are pictures of that master bedroom in the, would be like the north end of the house.
And are those, do those photos fairly and accurately depict the bedroom on that day?
They do.
Your Honor, this time the state moves to the admission of, I believe it's 11 through 14.
No objection.
The video is out there.
May I pull the show? And so I'm showing you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 11. What do we see in this photo?
Okay, this is that master bedroom in the back of the house. On the left side is the corner of the bed. There's a rocking horse, one of those bouncy spring suspended horses. There's an area rug in the center with some medical intervention like left by EMS. There's a door to the backyard. There's a chest of drawers on the right side of the door. There's a table with a lamp and some miscellaneous stuff on there.
I'm going to show you now what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 12, and if you could describe what we're looking at in this photo.
Okay, that's the same room, kind of looking back the other way. So now, whereas the other photo we're looking at the horse, this way you're kind of standing by the horse looking back toward that door that goes into the kitchen. And again, you see the medical intervention stuff on the ground, the corner of the bed. There's a table over there. It's the same room though.
Now I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 13. What are we seeing in this photo?
Okay, that's the same room again. It's just kind of more of a straight-on view of the entire bed. Again, you can see the medical intervention items on the ground, on the area rug, and there's just various things on the bed, and there's a corner of a table on the left-hand side, and that's like a little storage area thing on our level, like kind of in-table thing. It looks like on the right side of the bed.
All right. Now I'd like to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 14. Let me see if we can.
Okay. Oh, nice.
And what do you notice in this photo?
Okay, that's kind of a mid-range shot of the rocking horse or the bouncing horse.
All right, and did you, was there any sort of special significance attributed to that bouncy horse or the rocking horse for you?
Right. I received information that the initial story was that the victim fell from the horse or was pushed by a child from the horse.
And based on that information, did you make any measurements or anything of the horse?
Correct, yeah. We took a lot of pictures of the horse with tape measure to show how high it was, how wide it was, how long it was, everything.
Do you recall what those dimensions were for the horse?
Right, I think it was about 29 inches to the head, or 29 to the seat. I'd have to look at the pictures to be certain, but.
With looking at your report, would that help refresh your memory?
Sure, yeah, I know where it is in there. Thanks. Okay, it's right here. 39 inches to the head, 29 to the seat, 23 inches to the springs that suspend the horse, and 35 inches in length.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 16, 17, 18, and 19.
You think the other exhibits? I think all the other ones that-
Yes. And do you recognize these photos that are presented to you?
Yes, sir.
Well, why do you recognize these photos, or how do you recognize these photos?
They're photos of the horse in that master bedroom from the scene with the ruler or tape
And-
measure.
It kind of shows some of the measurements or the process of you measuring the
Correct,
horse.
right.
Are those a fair and accurate representation of those measurements that you made that day?
They are.
And, Your Honor, at this time, the state would move for the admission of State's Exhibits 16, 17, 18, and 19.
No objection.
Admittedly, without objection.
May I publish, Your Honor? All right. Now I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 16. There's a little bit of glare, but what are we looking at in this photo?
Okay, so that's a kind of a top-down view of the saddle of the horse, and then there's a tape measure to show how far it is from the edge of the horse to the springs.
And based on those measurements, approximately how far that is that?
It's about 6 inches.
I'm now going to show you what's been marked or admitted as State's Exhibit 17. Let me zoom out. All right. Now, what are we looking at in this photo, sir?
That's a side view of the horse with a tape measure running from the ground all the way up to the top of the head.
And if I remember correctly, you said the top of the head was how tall?
About 39 inches.
Now I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 18. Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
And what are we looking at in this photo?
So that's the same horse, and it's just moved the tape measure back toward the saddle area to show approximately how tall it is where someone would sit on the saddle of the horse.
And it's a little tough at this angle with the measuring tape, but how high did you measure the seat?
I called that about 29 inches.
Okay. And this looks kind of a similar view, a little farther out though, but it's been admitted as a State's Exhibit 19. And what are we looking at here?
So that's just a further out view, kind of the same idea, just the horse from the side with a measuring tape running from the ground to the saddle.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 15. And do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
And why do you recognize that photo?
It's
How do you recognize this photo?
it's a photo of one of the restrooms in the home.
And I'm also going to show you what's going to be marked as State's Exhibits 30, 31, or 30 and 31. Let me just get those marked. And do you recognize these photos?
Yes, that's the same bathroom.
And are those a fair and accurate representation of the bathroom that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit, and I think it's States 15, 30, and 31. Is that correct, Detective Stewart?
Right, 15, 30, and 31.
And just for the record, what are we looking at in this photo?
Which one is it?
Sorry, State's Exhibit 15.
Okay, that's a kind of a mid-range view photograph of the bathroom in the home. There's a trash can, a toilet, and then a shower area off to the right in the picture.
And now I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 30.
Okay.
And what are we looking at here?
It's kind of the same picture, just a more upward angle. There's a sink, the top of the toilet, and there's like a wire shelving system that has some towels on it.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 31, or admitted State's Exhibit 31.
Okay.
And what are we seeing in this photo?
That's the same bathroom, just a view of the right side and the shower.
And just so we're clear, that's just a shower stall. It's not a tub or...
Right, it's just like a flat area for showers. No like bathtub to hold water, just shower.
And part of the time while you were there, were you looking at things that were in that back bedroom?
Yes.
What were some of the things you noticed on the bed?
On the bed there was a bag of ice. There was like a cold compress kind of item.
And do you recall the location on the bed? That's where those were found?
I don't, just that it was on the bed.
I'm going to show you what's now been marked as State's Exhibits 20, 21, and 22. Do you recognize these photos, sir?
Yes.
And how or why do you recognize these photos?
They're kind of close-up photos of the ice and the compress that's on the bed. I recognize them from my report.
And are those a fair and accurate representation of the ice bag and the cold compress?
They are.
And it's a fair and accurate representation of how they appeared that day to you?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd move for the admission of States 20, 21, and 22.
No objection.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as States 20. It's fairly straightforward, but if you could just describe what we're viewing.
Sure, it's just a cold compress.
All right. And now what's been admitted as States 21. Can you tell us what we're looking at that photo? It's
like a bag of ice.
And just so we're clear, are we looking into the bag kind of?
Right.
From that angle?
Yeah, it's kind of open, and then inside, I think it was possibly like more than one bag, like a bag within a bag, and then ice inside that kind of thing.
And when you got there was still ice in this bag?
Right. Looks like.
Is it your did you guys pull any of this like out of a freezer or anything and put it on the bed?
No, we wouldn't do that. No.
Okay. So that's how it was when you went into the home.
Right.
And you said this was after 6 o'clock. Is that correct? Okay. And now I'm going to show you, or I'm going to publish what's been shown or admitted at State's Exhibit 22. And now I've messed up the focus. Let's see if we get the. There we go.
Okay, that's better.
What are we looking at in this photo?
Okay, that's on top of the same bed. It looks like a Walmart bag and a pillow with a pillowcase on it.
All right.
That'd be a good place to stop, Mr. Marshall.
That's fine. I know we can stop here.
Let's do that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long day, so we're going to stop there and continue with it tomorrow morning. Let me give you the same instructions that I've given already, and that is you're instructed when you go home not to watch the news, not to read the newspaper about any report, what's happening here. Don't discuss the evidence or anything with your family, friends, or anybody that wants to talk to you about what's going on in the case. Just keep yourself sequestered as best you can. When you come back, I'll give you time in a minute. Make sure you have your juror buttons on. Make sure you leave your notepads in there. They'll be there for you tomorrow. I think I'll probably have you here again at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Okay, so I'm terribly early, but certainly downstairs, ready to go by 8:30, and then we'll bring you up and get you going. All right. Make sure you take the personal belongings with you. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Please rise.
Please be the witness to return.
Yeah, I was gonna have you sit.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think that you could be here by 8:30 as well tomorrow. Detective will continue with your testimony. Okay, sir. All right, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. All right, counsel. Long day, first day. So I guess before we go for the evening, I was looking at the list of witnesses, and I know there's a long list, but I'm assuming that, and I'm just looking at the list, not necessarily the file witness list, and I guess I could pull that out, but I'm looking at the list that we used for the questionnaire. Are any of those not going to be called at this time, that we can eliminate from that?
Yes, sir. We're not going to be calling everybody on that list.
Okay.
We're definitely going to be shortening from that.
Okay.
There are a few that are kind of questionable depending on how the evidence comes in and what statements are made, whether or not we'll need a few of them. But we're not going to be calling that full list.
All right. Do you have I don't want to create more work for you. I know both sides are working hard here. But do you have a ready-made list of those that you actually are planning on right now calling in your case in chief that I can go off of? And you don't do it right now, but could you have it prepared for me tomorrow? At least let me know which ones, or I can ask you tomorrow. We can have an idea of who it is that you're actually going to be.
Yeah, sure. And we provided a pared down list of proposed witnesses for defense, and I can forward that to your office as soon as I get back to the office.
Why don't you do that? To Ms. Sonia, she'll give it to me. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, counsel, is there anything that we need to do and put on the record before we recess this evening? I want to make sure that we have all of the exhibits that have been admitted. Don't leave until we have all of those for Shannon. Is there anything else we need to address this evening?
No, please, sir.
All right, so be here by 8:30 tomorrow as well. We'll have the jury here then. We'll try to get started as soon thereafter as possible. I don't think I have a great deal to do in the morning. Let me just make sure. Just one issue at 8:15. So we could be ready to go as soon as everybody gets here and gets ready to go. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If nothing else, we'll be in recess.
All right, sir. Thank you.